Alright, how's it going, everybody? We're back here for an update video, and it's been about a month. Greg's been working on his Bumble Bees, and so I kind of took a break on update videos until he got most of the work done with them. We have been testing it out every week. So if you've been keeping an eye on live streams every Thursday and Friday, you will have already seen all these changes. I'm going to try my best to cover everything in the last 4 weeks, but I might miss something, so hopefully I don't. So this is the update video for 6.05.35, 36, 37, and 38. Main changes done in them are aluminum processing has gotten a lot harder, and he added bumblebees and things to do with bumblebees. So let's start with the bumblebees. You have bumble hives, which you find out in the wild. They have to be covered by at least one block of dirt and visible on the side. So hills are the easiest place to find them, but you have ones for different biomes. So let's look up the bumblebees here. There they are. So these are all the bumblebees that are currently in here. I will try to explain them to you the best I can. These are your wild bumblebees. These are basically your common breed. This would be probably like meadows. Then you have your swimming ones. So you have surfer bumblebees and swimming bumblebees, subnautic bumblebees. With your wild ones, you have the wild ones, captive, and then common and cultivated. You might want to go through and read some of the flavor text for these guys. They're kind of funny. Then you have your magic branch, and apparently if you have a biome mod, you can get these if you don't have forestry, if you don't have Thaumcraft, like in a magic forest, I think Greg said. But I'm guessing with vanilla like we have, we'll never find these. So you have your apprentice, you have your magician, and then you have your wizard. And at the very end there is, where is he? Huh, I don't see him. Maybe he actually hit him. Okay. So then you have your nether. So you have your nether, you have your hellish, and then you have your impish, and your demonic. And then you have your NBs, so obviously in the end. So you have end, void, alienated, and then nihilistic. You have your stoned, so these will be like rocky bees. So you have stoned, rocking, hard rock, and then there's Bumbleovis. That's your top tier, which that's the one I was kind of looking for on the other one, because I thought there was a special one on the magic one like that, but I don't see it. Jungles have not gotten different names yet. They're all just tiers of jungle. Frosty is your wintry ones. Then you have North Pole. You have Bumble Elf, Bumble Claws, which is your top tier. Bubble Shroom, these are for Mushroom Islands. Your Bumble Toad, your Bumble Bro, and then your Bumble Peach. They're Mario, apparently. Sandy is just like Jungle. They just have tiers for those right now. You have Creative Bumblebees. Builder Bumblebees, Masonic, and then Industrial. So this is your Industrial branch. And that ends with Overseer. And then you have your Bumble Tycoon, your Monopolistic, your Bumble Knight, your Colonial, your Royal, and your Bumble Monarch. There is a way of getting these down here, and it actually tells you in the changelog, but I will not read that part due to spoilers, and somebody might want to know how to figure it out themselves. So I will leave that up to you guys to figure out. You have your Bumbleizer. So this is your Bealizer for bumblebees. And these are pretty high tier machines because you have to have these crystal processors. Everything else is very low tier, but you do have to get to being able to make all of this good stuff. There is no handheld. This is your only way of doing it. In one of the most recent ones, you can do forestry bees analyzing through here as well, and it's actually cheaper on honey. It's 50 rather than 100 liters of honey. Then you have your Bumbleary. This is your apiary. It's kind of a mix between an apiary and a bee house. Make sure you save your bumble hives because you need them to create the Bumblearies. Basically, they are completely automatable. You cannot automate the taking in or out of them. Bumblebees work a lot different than forestry bees do. As in, come out here, you're going to get stung if you don't have a scoop or an apiary suit, or a hazmat suit works as well. This is my drone, and this is my queen. The drones will go into these spots. This one will actually die when the next one comes in, and apparently I actually got a swimming out of here at some point, but he is dead. They will die off and fill up down here if they're not removed immediately. They will actually start to void after they die off, and this fills up. These are where all of your honeycombs can come. You cannot take them out of here. I'm trying right now to click on them. While they're working, you cannot take them out. If you break this hive, you will kill them. You cannot access it from any side but the top. It takes about a minute for them to do their breedy thing. And at that time, if you use a scoop, you can get them out quickly if you want them to not breed. I'll bring you out here and show you the Bealizer, the Bumbleizer. I have one set up in here. You actually pump the honey in through the top, or you can do the funnel thing to put it on there. This is your Bumbleizer. You got to make sure to have these tiny pieces of paper and honey in there. Put your bee in. It scans and it comes out on the other side. And there's the input for the fluid and regular automating side to side, in and out. So that is your Bumbleizer. That is about all we have for bumblebees right now. I'm sure he'll continue to work on them over time. In 35 small gem ores that would drop as a flawed or a chipped will now drop either 2 or 4. So you are always guaranteed to have at least one amount of that gem rather than getting basically screwed when you get it chipped and only getting a quarter of a gem. Now you'll get 4 chipped, so you can break them down to get 1 dust if you need it. Also with the flawed, you can now use flawed gems to make gem tipped pickaxes. Let's look at the diamond here, because that's the main one you would actually use. But you take any kind of raw steel pickaxe. It has to be the raw one. It cannot be one that you have already like looted, or one that's already been sharpened. And then you put your 2 flawed gems on it, and you get your diamond tipped pickaxe, which will actually make it a tier 3 instead of a tier 2. The D right there is the durability, so you go from 512 for regular steel to 1280, and the mining speed is 8 where it was 6. You actually get 1/4 of the durability of the gem tool, so be careful not to use a really crappy gem, or your pickaxe will actually be less than what it would be if it was left as steel. Let's see here. Let's see, the Bumble Bees, the Bumble Hives, the Bumbleizer. That was it for 35. Now 36. The sound of the steam engines was removed because it lagged, because the sound system sucks. Redstone repeaters can now be attached to Gregtech red alloy wires and similar in order to have a one-way output. There is no timing with it. Works just like the redstone torch on it, but it just gives you a one-way circuit without having to put the repeater on the ground and connect to it. He added aggressiveness stats to the bumblebees to determine the rate of which they will sting you, because they will sting you. They have an area of effect. If I walk across this bridge, I have a chance that that bumblebee will sting me. So be very careful. If you put them somewhere you're going to walk, don't put really aggressive ones, or you could die. Or make sure you wear a proper suit. The Bumbleberry, which we talked about. The Bumbleberry cannot be automated, we talked about. It is possible to have more than one princess show up every now and then. But the second, once it becomes a queen, it'll kill off any other princesses that are in there. So you don't want to just leave them without checking on them. The only way to really stop them from breeding over and over is to take them out. So you got to make sure that you know how long your bumblebees will live. You can tell the quality of your bee by how many drones and how many combs drop. The more combs, the better output you're going to get from the bees, and the more drones you get, the longer lifespan of the bee. Let's see. And that is it for 36. 37. Some issues that came up during my testing that he wasn't in the mood to actually tell you what it was. And it's already fixed, so you don't need to worry about it really. Breeding system for the bumblebees was added. And then clay combs clay comb producing bumblebees were added. That's the creative ones, if I remember correctly. Then for 38, some asphalt and mud related bugs regarding walking speed, because he was trusting Minecraft, which is crappy, and he shouldn't have done that. Apparently it was a bug for only one release, so I'm not even sure what it was, but it's fixed, so we ain't got to worry about it. He redesigned the texture for the meteoric iron rock, which is really cool. You can definitely tell. See if I can find it here. That's not it. There it is, Meteorite. So this is what your meteoric iron rock will look like now, is a meteorite. It is a chunk's worth. So 4 of them to make 1 ingot. I'm not sure if it was in 38 or if it's coming in 39, but he is going to up the drop rate of them from 1 every 32 to 1 every 16. The chance that you get a flint, you'll now get the meteorite, due to them being almost impossible to find currently. Let's see. It took me like 20 minutes or so to find one of them while looking around during testing. And using meteoric steel is a good way of getting to your iridium crucible now, and being able to actually bypass the vanadium one. As I said, he changed the name of it to a meteorite instead of meteoric iron rock. He changed a lot of recipes that required silicon dioxide. Now we'll also accept quartz directly, which is, just about any of them that took silicon dioxide, you can now use quartz straight. I looked this up the other day, but let's see if I can find a Gregtech one, or like this here used to take silicon dioxide you could use instead of sand. It'll now use quartz to make TNT. That is not a Gregtech one, so that wasn't changed. Trying to think of some of the other ones that were actually... This is one of the main ones. You can use quartz instead of silicon dioxide for your circuit plates, and you can use any of the quartz. So regular quartz, nether quartz, quartzite, charged Certus quartz, any of them. Your mixer for your construction foam can use it. Let's see. Compressing. This one used to be sand to make the hardening spray. You can now use quartz for that. I don't know about that one. So that's the recipes that used silicon dioxide before. The crusher now uses diamond gems instead of diamond plates. So you can make your crusher earlier on. Once you find 2 regular diamonds, you don't have to find the better ones. The reason for this is because making the actual plates in the cutting machine are now more expensive. You now need a medium voltage cutting machine to do your plates. Your plates are still going to be used for the shredder though. So if you want the shredder early on, you're definitely going to need to find at least 1 flawless or 1 exquisite to make your shredder, so you can cut it by hand this way. instead of using the cutting machine, or you'll have to make the cutting machine be able to do 96. A lot of the recipes in the crusher have changed, or in the cutting machine has changed. Wood is still the same, but all of your gem things have changed. These are now 48 instead of 96. Cutting your plates are now 32. Or cutting your ingots back down are now 32. These, like I said, are now 48. Cutting bolts out of rods are 32. So is cutting long roll rods to shorter rods. And cutting a block down to dust. Wait a minute. A block of solid aluminum fluorite will only give you 1 dust. I think that might be a goof. Cutting your glass is still 16. Like I said, your wood cutting is still 16, so you can still do that early on. There's your wood cutting recipes. So that's basically the changes that he made there. Let's see. The electrolyzer now has 2 items and 2 fluid inputs. Bring you over here and show you what they look like now. So here is the electrolyzer. Now has 2 input for fluid and item. Your regular recipes will still work in here. You'll just need a selector tag to make them work. If it only takes 1 thing to do it. And I will show you here in a minute the reason for that. Let's see. Having acid in a crucible may result in the breaking of them breaking apart. Use an acid-proof crucible if you have to handle that kind of stuff. A lot of electrolyzer and centrifuge recipe outputs have changed. They will do silicon dioxide and alumina whenever possible now. This is part of the aluminum processing change, and it is a big one, which is the next thing we're going to talk about here. The biggest change in this is sapphires, which used to be in the electrolyzer, are now in the compressor, or in the centrifuge, excuse me. And instead of getting an oxygen output, you get alumina and the byproduct that makes it whatever color it is. I also noticed there is a purple sapphire now. I haven't found a sapphire vein to see if these actually spawn, but there are now purple ones which give vanadium as its byproduct. But basically any recipe that would give aluminum will now give alumina. Any recipe that gave silicon and oxygen will give silicon dioxide, and either no oxygen or a little less oxygen to make up for it. So you'll have to do a little bit more work to get your actual pure silicon out. So we'll look at clay here. Your clay dust will now give you 1 lithium, 2 alumina, 2 silicon dioxide, 2 sodium, and no oxygen whatsoever. That's the other main one that will change for folks there. So your brown clay will be the exact same thing, except it'll give you potassium. Alright. And now for the alumina change. So MV has now gotten excessively harder to get to, because you have to get alumina. Now, there is ways of doing this in LV. He made sure of that. But there are ways of doing it better and easier the higher you get. I'm going to try to walk you through this process somewhat quickly. Once I get it all working, I'll actually do a video just on this. But first thing you need to do is get fluorite dust, which you get from Meteorite and a few other things. Why can I never spell this stuff? So, Meteorite, when you have purified. Let's see. It's not the sifter. Is it doing it this way? Electrolyzer. I gotta ask him about this one. It's not giving an output. There it is. It's UO instead of OU. That's the problem. Okay, so it's looking like all your purified stuff in the electrolyzer isn't giving a byproduct off. Not quite sure why. But there is no fluorite ore that I know of. If you have calcite, you can actually use hydrogen fluoride with your calcite to get fluorite. That's basically just cleaning the fluorite out of your hydrogen fluoride. But you actually want the hydrogen fluoride, so that's kind of backwards. You wouldn't really do that. You can also use fluorine and calcium to make it, but there's not a whole lot of ways of getting this. Sifting phosphorus, apatite, humanite, and cassiterite. There it is. Will give you your fluorite. You can also get it when you wash your cassiterite, I do believe. Actually, that's tin. Let's see. Yeah. Tin will give it to you. Cassiterite will give it to you. The humanite will give it to you as well. So that's going to give you your fluorite ore here. And then you need to put that in a mixer with sulfuric acid. And that will give you your hydrogen fluoride. Your hydrogen fluoride will come into a mixer with quartz dust and give you hexafluorosilicic acid. And then you also will need the hydrogen fluoride for the alumina processing as well. I'm actually going to use this machine for both of them. The other thing you will need it for is the see if I can... Yeah, that ain't it. I spelled it on the front, but I seriously doubt I spelled it right. So let's do this way here. Hydrogen fluoride. Mixer with the silicon dioxide will give you the hexafluorosilicic acid, as we said. Mix it with sodium hydroxide dust and alumina, and you get molten cryolite and a lot of water. Now, this stuff is kind of a pain to get. Now, I was setting up and running seawater or salt water here, which uses 16 buckets worth and only gives you 70 seconds pile of it, and a lot of hydrogen, oxygen, a little bit of chlorine. But it takes 1,024 seconds. I ran it for about 4 hours and got enough to do one process, 18. I have ran it most of today and only got 64 of them. This is the worst way to do it. Now, the other way of doing it is in there, and I somehow missed it. If you all know my NEI skills, you'll understand, because a lot of times I will miss things like that. But salt water, which is in Gregtech without IHL, which is just mixing salt and water. Where's the actual... you can use borax and hydrochloric acid to get salt water this way as well. But you can just mix salt and 3 water and get 4 salt water. And then you electrolyze that, you get the same amount of sodium hydroxide, less chlorine, less hydrogen, less oxygen, and it only takes 64 seconds to do instead of 1024. So a lot quicker. A little more processing to do it, but a lot quicker. So, now, this stuff, as I said, this is kind of a pain in the butt. Alright, so this stuff you will also need to do your bauxite to sodium aluminate. This is how you will process your bauxite now. If you look up bauxite here, you will see there is no other way of doing it. You can't crucible it. You can't electrolyze it. This is it. So you will get a tiny refined ilmenite and a tiny refined rutile, 50% chance of 4 or 2. It only uses water, but it uses that sodium hydroxide stuff as well. Now, the sodium hydroxide will then need to make that cryolite stuff from your alumina, which the alumina you can use as dust or ingot. The reason for the ingot one is because the bauxite will actually put out a molten alumina, which you'll then have to make into an ingot. So this is your final destination, basically. You need alumina, dust or ingot, any kind of carbon, so graphite, charcoal, dust, coal dust, whatever. Molten aluminum fluoride, molten cryolite, and you get 4 aluminum dust and CO2 dust. So that is your processing of aluminum now. As I said, much more of a pain in the butt, but much more realistic. Mud variants of some forestry recipes that need dirt and water have been added. Basically, you can use it to make humus and bog earth. Then you have the Bumble Bee things that tell you how to make them. And there's also a sugar plus sulfuric acid. Will give you carbon, water, and sulfur trioxide now in a mixer. Another great big change is flour and rice can now be used to make biomass, which is awesome. So if you're processing your wheat down to dry it to get distilled water, and then using the dry grass to make biomass, you can also use the flour that you get out of it to make biomass as well. And there is now a titanium drum, which is bigger than the stainless steel drum, but it is not corrosive resistant like stainless steel. So depending on what you're putting in it, depends on which one you might want to use. And last but not least, there is a new pipe. Now this pipe is one that you will probably want to use very early game. It is an awesome addition. I'm so glad he made it. And I'm so hope you can tell the sarcasm in my voice, because it is an iridium fluid pipe. Who the hell is going to waste iridium on a fluid pipe? I don't know. But it is basically the best fluid pipe you can get. Next to HLS bedrockium alloy and void metal. So that is your update video for this month, depending on what Greg puts out in the next coming weeks. Depends on how often I will be doing these. If you want a more up-to-date every week, make sure to watch the live stream on Thursday and Friday mornings. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you very much. I am out of here.